America has territories where people carry U.S. passports, but can't fully participate in U.S. democracy. And somehow, that's only the second weirdest thing about them. Most people think the United States ends at Hawaii. It doesn't. Scattered across the Pacific and Caribbean are forgotten islands where taxes vanish, military power quietly expands, and entire cultures survive in the blind spot of the empire. But then you find out one island was claimed over bird poop, and another is basically a classified airport with palm trees. And wait till you see the territory where freedom gets so extreme, it loops back into isolation. Like the video because public school geography tapped out early. Subscribe because knowing how the world actually works is starting to feel like a survival skill. Let's break it down. Number 10. Northern Mariana Islands. Imagine buying a shirt labeled Made in America, only to find out it came from a Pacific island most Americans couldn't locate if Google Maps started crying. The Northern Mariana Islands look like vacation screensavers. Palm trees, clear water, tiny population, around 47,000 people. But then you realize this place became one of the weirdest loopholes in modern American history. For years, factories here produced clothing legally stamped Made in USA while operating under separate immigration rules. Foreign workers came in by the thousands, low wages, long hours, tropical capitalism with better scenery. And surprisingly, despite being a US territory, residents still can't vote for president. American enough for military recruitment, not American enough for full political power. Funny how Empire always finds the terms and conditions section. Cost of living? Brutal. Most goods are imported, so groceries can run 30 to 50% higher than mainland prices. Gas spikes hard. Housing is limited. Tourism jobs dominate the economy. And yet, crime rates stay relatively low compared to many mainland cities. What nobody tells you is the islands never fully lost themselves. Chamorro and Carolinian traditions still shape daily life. Ancient navigation culture survived container ships and globalization. That's rare. Quick rant. Island internet might be the greatest scam humanity ever normalized. You pay premium prices for Wi-Fi that loads like it's delivering packets by canoe. And if you think this American territory is strange, wait until you see the one where people are US nationals, not citizens. Number 9. American Samoa. American Samoa has one of the highest US military enlistment rates per capita, and people born there still weren't automatically granted full US citizenship. Yeah, America gets weird when the map zooms out. American Samoa looks like paradise. Volcanic mountains, blue water so clear it feels edited, tight family systems. Almost 90% of the land is communally owned under traditional Samoan customs, which means corporations can't just roll in and build 17 luxury condos named The Breeze. But then reality shows up. The economy leans heavily on tuna canning, government jobs, and US aid. Cost of living is high because most goods are imported. Internet speeds? Let's just say your buffering screen becomes part of the culture. Median household income sits far below the mainland US, and younger residents often leave for better opportunities. Surprisingly though, violent crime stays relatively low. Community ties still matter there. People actually know their neighbors, which in mainland America would qualify as suspicious behavior. Quick rant. Mainland tourists love saying they want untouched paradise until they realize untouched paradise doesn't include DoorDash, iced oat milk, or same-day Amazon shipping. Suddenly, colonialism sounds convenient again. Be honest. Would you trade higher income for slower life and stronger community? Yes or no? Number 8. Guam. Guam is what happens when paradise accidentally becomes a military PowerPoint presentation. Guam looks peaceful, white sand, jungle cliffs, about 170,000 people living in what's technically American soil. But then you notice something strange. Nearly 1/3 of the island is controlled by the US military. That's not an island. That's a very nervous parking lot for democracy. The economy depends heavily on military spending and tourism. Median home prices have climbed hard in recent years, while imported goods make groceries painfully expensive. Gas costs more. Electricity costs more. Basically, if it arrives by boat, your wallet gets assaulted first. Surprisingly though, Guam's crime rate stays lower than many mainland US cities. Strong community culture still holds things together. Chamorro identity survived colonization, war, and decades of geopolitical stress. That's resilience, not branding. Remember the bird poop island from earlier? Yeah, somehow America looked at Guam and said, "You know what this beach needs? Missile defense systems." Imagine trying to explain Guam to someone in Iowa. So it's America. Yes. They vote for president? Next question. Quick rant. Military bases always advertise strategic importance like it's romantic. Bro, that's just real estate language for first place everyone panics during global conflict. And if you think Guam feels trapped between paradise and pressure, wait until you see the Caribbean territory where taxes disappear and billionaires suddenly discover island simplicity. Number 7. U.S. Virgin Islands. U.S. Virgin Islands are where rich people go to escape society, while bringing society with them on a yacht. On paper, this place sounds unbeatable. Caribbean water, no passport needed for Americans, warm weather year-round. And thanks to special tax incentives, wealthy investors and business owners have treated the islands like a financial cheat code for years. But then reality walks onto the beach holding a grocery receipt. The cost of living here is brutal. Most food and supplies are imported, so prices run far above the mainland. Median rent has climbed fast in tourist-heavy areas, and utility bills can feel like punishment for enjoying air conditioning. Crime also varies hard by island. Some neighborhoods feel incredibly safe, while others struggle with violent crime rates higher than many mainland cities, which is wild. One block feels like a honeymoon brochure. The next feels like your rental car insurance suddenly became spiritual. Tourism drives the economy, but hurricanes keep rewriting the rules. After Hurricanes Irma and Maria, recovery dragged for years in some areas. Paradise is beautiful until the infrastructure remembers it's on an island. Quick rant. Rich people love saying they live simple in the Virgin Islands. Brother, if your simple life includes a private dock and imported wine flown in from Italy, you are not surviving nature. Nature is catering to you. And surprisingly, despite all the money flowing through these islands, many locals still deal with limited opportunities, high costs, and housing pressure caused by outside wealth moving in fast. And if you think tropical America gets complicated here, wait until you see the territory where millions of U.S. citizens still live in political limbo. Number 6. Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico has more U.S. citizens than 20 actual states, and somehow still gets treated like America's Read Later tab. Puerto Rico feels alive in a way mainland America sometimes forgot how to be. Music everywhere. Streets that smell like salt, diesel, and fried food at the same time. About 3.2 million people living under the U.S. flag, but without voting representation for president unless they move stateside. And then there's the economy. Poverty rates hover above 40%. Power outages still happen regularly years after Hurricane Maria exposed how fragile the electrical grid really was. Median household income is less than half the U.S. average, but housing prices and rent have surged hard in tourist zones and expat-heavy areas. Surprisingly though, Puerto Rico keeps reinventing itself. Tourism is booming again. Tech investors and crypto millionaires moved in, chasing tax incentives. Local culture pushed back just as hard. It's one of the few places where colonial history, economic survival, and Bad Bunny all somehow occupy the same sentence naturally. Crypto bros keep arriving in Puerto Rico talking about freedom. My brother in Christ, you moved to an island because taxes made you emotional. Quick rant. The power grid here deserves its own documentary series. You can be having the greatest beach day of your life. Hear one transformer explode in the distance, and suddenly everybody starts charging phones like it's the apocalypse draft combine. Now picture yourself there for a second. Warm air at midnight, salsa music echoing down the block, tiny plastic cup of strong coffee in your hand, ocean breeze. Then your Wi-Fi dies mid-sentence and the entire neighborhood collectively sighs like this happens every Thursday. And if you think Puerto Rico balances chaos and beauty strangely, the next territory barely has permanent humans at all. Number 5. Wake Island. Wake Island has no permanent population, no real economy, and somehow still feels more strategically important than half the planet. Wake Island isn't a tropical paradise. It's a military outpost pretending to be an island. Tiny strip of coral in the middle of nowhere. No civilians, no suburbs, no Starbucks trying to look local. And yet, this place became legendary during World War II after U.S. forces defended it against Japanese attacks just days after Pearl Harbor. Today, it's mostly used for military operations and emergency aircraft landings. Basically, if geopolitics had a pit stop, this would be it. Crime rate? Technically almost zero. Hard to commit street crime when the street is mostly runway. Cost of living? Weirdly high because literally everything gets shipped or flown in. Job market? Almost entirely government and contracted military work. Quality of life? Depends how much you enjoy isolation and hearing generators hum like background music for existence. Wake Island is what happens when Google Maps accidentally leaves a loading screen in the Pacific Ocean. Quick rant. Imagine explaining your address here. Where do you live? Wake Island. Oh cool, near Hawaii? Brother, emotionally, maybe. Now picture yourself there. Endless ocean, warm wind, military cargo planes roaring overhead at sunset. No traffic, no crowds. Just silence so deep your own thoughts start sounding like podcasts. Sharp contrast moment. Puerto Rico feels loud, crowded, alive. Wake Island feels like humanity hit pause and forgot to unpause the server. Could you live somewhere with almost zero people around for a full year? Yes or no? Number 4. Midway Atoll. Midway Atoll helped decide World War II, and now it's mostly occupied by birds judging humanity from a distance. Midway Atoll sits alone in the Pacific, like history forgot to clean up after itself. No permanent civilian population, no nightlife, no economy unless seabirds start paying taxes. But this tiny atoll changed the course of World War II in 1942. The Battle of Midway crippled Japan's aircraft carrier fleet and shifted power in the Pacific. Thousands died fighting over a place most people still couldn't point to on a map. Now, it's a wildlife refuge. Surprisingly, more than 1 million seabirds live there seasonally, especially albatrosses. Crime rate is basically zero, unless you count aggressive bird behavior. Cost of living? Irrelevant, because almost nobody permanently lives there except researchers and conservation workers. Job market? Can you survive isolation while being screamed at by birds? Quality of life depends entirely on how much silence you can tolerate. Imagine surviving one of the most important naval battles in human history just for the island to become a bird HOA. Now picture yourself there. Ocean wind, rusted bunkers, endless blue water, hundreds of albatrosses gliding overhead while waves hit old military ruins. It feels peaceful until you remember this place once sounded like explosions and sirens instead of birds. And if you think Midway feels strange, the next territory somehow turned isolation into an actual horror story. Number 3. Palmyra Atoll. Palmyra Atoll looks like the kind of place influencers call untouched paradise, right before somebody disappears in a documentary. Palmyra Atoll is one of the strangest places America technically owns. No permanent population, no hotels, no suburbs, just dense jungle, coral reefs, coconut crabs, and a handful of researchers rotating in and out like they're stationed on another planet. And weirdly, it's the only incorporated US territory still fully controlled by the federal government, which sounds important until you realize there are usually fewer than 20 people there at a time. Crime rate? Basically non-existent now. But then there's the murder case. In the 1970s, a double homicide on the island turned Palmyra into true crime folklore. Suddenly, Paradise became a horror movie with better lighting. Cost of living is impossible to calculate because almost everything has to be shipped in manually. No real job market outside conservation and research work. Quality of life? Incredible if you love nature. Terrifying if you need civilization to emotionally stabilize. Imagine your nearest neighbor being a coconut crab the size of a microwave with visible attitude problems. Quick rant. People always say they want to disconnect from society. No, you don't. You want weaker Wi-Fi at a luxury resort. Real isolation hits different when there's no Uber, no hospital, and your survival plan becomes, hopefully the boat comes back Thursday. Picture yourself there for a second. Warm rain hitting giant palm leaves. Total silence except ocean wind and birds. Stars so bright they look fake, beautiful, until nighttime reminds you humans were never meant to be this alone. And if you think Palmyra feels isolated and creepy, the next territory somehow turned bird poop into international politics. Number 2. Kingman Reef. Kingman Reef is technically American territory, even though it's mostly underwater and completely useless for normal human life, which honestly feels like the most honest metaphor for geopolitics so far. Kingman Reef is barely land. No permanent population, no cities, no roads, no economy. Just coral, sharks, seabirds, and a legal ownership claim floating in the middle of the Pacific like America forgot to log out. And yet the US still controls it. Crime rate? Zero. Hard to commit crimes when the nearest neighbor is a fish with prehistoric energy. Cost of living? Technically infinite because you can't actually live there long term. Job market? Unless your resume says marine biologist or extremely committed coconut crab observer, opportunities are limited. Surprisingly though, the reef has massive ecological importance. It's one of the most untouched marine ecosystems under US control. Giant fish populations, coral systems, predator species thriving without heavy human interference. Nature basically looked around and said, finally, these idiots left. This is the only American territory where your landlord is the Pacific Ocean. Number 1. Navassa Island. America once claimed an island because of bird poop. Not oil, not gold, bird poop. And somehow, it turned into international politics. Navassa Island sits between Haiti and Jamaica like a forgotten argument nobody fully resolved. No permanent population, no cities, no roads. Just sharp cliffs, wild goats, rare lizards, and enough seabird guano in the 1800s to make governments start acting irrationally. Back then, guano was valuable fertilizer. So valuable that the US passed the Guano Islands Act in 1856, basically saying, if Americans find bird poop on an island, dibs. Human history is incredible. Today, Navassa is an uninhabited wildlife refuge claimed by both the United States and Haiti. Crime rate? 0 humans, 0 crime. Cost of living? Impossible because there's no actual economy. Job market? Unless you're a conservation scientist or an extremely motivated seabird, opportunities are thin. Surprisingly though, the island became important for biodiversity, rare coral ecosystems, protected seabird colonies, nature thriving because humans mostly stopped touching it. Imagine explaining this to aliens. So why are you fighting over this island? Fertilizer ghosts. Quick rant. Humanity will romanticize empire all day until you realize half of history was just countries aggressively collecting random stuff, like emotionally unstable pirates with paperwork. Now picture yourself there. Caribbean wind hitting volcanic cliffs, waves smashing against black rock. No traffic, no noise, no notifications. Just ocean and silence stretching forever. Honestly, for about 6 minutes, it sounds healthier than modern life. Fake local quote time. Living on Navassa is peaceful once you accept the fact there's no living on Navassa. That might be the most accurate tourism slogan ever written. Like the video, because your geography teacher absolutely skipped the bird poop empire chapter. Subscribe because one day this weird knowledge will either save you at trivia night or make you unbearable at parties.